Hello and welcome to this tutorial for the game Biblios, Quill and Parchment. I'll explain the game for how it goes with 3 or 4 players. Here's how you play it. You are going to play for 8 rounds and then the game is over. Every player can keep track of the rounds on their own player board. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8. And then every player scores points. Whoever has the most points wins the game. You get all your points at the end of the game. So again, the game is 8 rounds and then you score points. If you have the most, you are the winner. I'll quickly explain what you get points for and a bit more into detail at the end of this video. Your own scoring also happens on your own player board. This top space is where you write your final score. You get points for this. The bonus points for if you've crossed off all spaces in these columns. You get points for how far you've traveled. You get points for whatever the number will be in this space here and then divided by 4. So if it's 16 here, then my score for this is 4. You get points for how many spaces you've filled in this cross and then doubled. You get points for how close you are to the altar on the main game board. And finally, you get points for how many spaces you've filled in on these columns. Moving on, before I explain what you do when it's your turn, I have to tell you that you play this game in 2 parts. You have the first half of the game, that will be 4 rounds, and then you have the second half of the game, that will be the other 4 rounds. So first I'll explain how you play the game during the first 4 rounds. Step 1. Every player rolls their own dice, these ones. Step 2. Every player says if they're happy with the results on the dice or if they want to re-roll once or twice. Step 3. Every player writes down how much they rolled with these 2 dice and then spends whatever the other dice gave for books and traveling. Step 4. Every player that has rolled any green chapel icons can write down their own player icon on the main game board here. Let me go back and explain that in more detail. Step 1. Every player rolls their own dice. That's easy. You all have these ones. Just roll them. Step 2. After you've rolled your dice, you will see if you're happy or unhappy with the result. Don't say anything, just hold out your fist. Every player does this, and then you count to 3, and on 3 you show with your hand what you want to do with your dice. If you keep your fist closed, that means you are happy with what you rolled with your dice and you're not going to roll them again. If you open your hand like this, then you let everyone at the table know that you are going to re-roll all of your dice. You may re-roll up to 3 times. And the last option you have is this. Instead of keeping your fist closed or opening your hand, you can point at only one of your dice. That tells the other players you want to re-roll that one die. But there's a special rule for that. As I've said, when you re-roll all of your dice, you can do that up to 3 times. When you re-roll only one die, you can first re-roll that one, and for your second re-roll, you can do that for the same die again, or actually re-roll one of your other dice. So in short, When you choose to reroll one die, you can spend those 3 single rerolls on different dice each time. So again, step 2 is showing what you want to do with your dice. Fist close is that you're happy with the way things are. Hand open is reroll all your dice. Pointing at one die means you're going to reroll a single die. For rerolls, you have a maximum of 3 tries. Step 3. Using your dice. The first thing you do is write down the number that you've rolled with these 2 dice. Just count up both numbers and write that on your own player board. This is what I rolled, and we're in round 1, so I write my number here in space number 1. Next comes 2, then 3. Just follow the path, it goes all the way to 8, because after 8 rounds the game is over. In round 2 I write my number here, and then I can use this space in between to already count up these 2 numbers, like this. Okay, those 2 dice are used, so you don't need them anymore. Now you have these 3 book dice. For each icon you can fill in a box in the column that shows the same icon. If you're the first player to reach the top of a column, you can circle the highest bonus points above it. If you're the second player to reach the top of a column, you can circle the second highest bonus points. And there's also some points for the third player to reach the top. It's possible that one of your book dice shows a green chapel, but there's no green chapel icon here. You set those green chapel dice aside for the moment. You'll use them at the end of each round. Next, you have this brown die. This is for traveling. If it shows 1 person, you can move 1 space. If it shows 2 persons, you can move 2 spaces, and so on. If you look at your player board, you can see this area and this person. This is the start. You can choose to start here or here. That's up to you. The goal is to reach cities. There are 3 in total. As you can see above it, at the end of the game you will score 2 or 5 or 10 points. Whenever you reach a space that shows a bonus, you get that bonus. A question mark always means that you can take one of your book dice, roll it, and get the result. If you roll the brown die and it shows a person and a star, the star means you can choose one of the book types, the columns, and fill in one of the boxes. And then you cross out the star space above that column to indicate you've used your star bonus for that column. Step 4. The chapel. If you have any dice that show a green chapel icon, now is when you use them. The chapel is here on the main game board. Let's say I have 2 green chapel on my dice. In that case, I move up 2 spaces closer to the altar. My own player board shows that I'm the player with this icon, so I write my icon in the next row and the next row because I had 2 icons. I'm moving closer to the altar. But that does mean that in case of a tie, I go last. One last detail. It's possible that you have 1 or more dice that you really can't use. One of the book dice or the brown travel die. If you can't use a die, you have a choice. You can either travel 1 space further, or you can fill in one of the spaces on your own cross here on your player board. At the end of the game you get double points for each space filled in on the cross. And that's it. This is how you play the first 4 rounds. You might wonder what writing down this number is for. That is for the second half of the game, rounds 5 through 8. From now on, you don't roll any more dice for yourself. All the dice will be placed on the main game board, and players can take 1 set to use. This is how you play the game in the second half. Step 1. Every player rolls 2 book dice and 1 travel die and places them on the main board. If you're not with 4 players, then the bottom row will just stay empty. Step 2. Write down a bid on your own player board in the space that shows which round it is. Shield it with your hand so that no one sees. Step 3. Based on how much each player bid, one by one you can choose a row of dice and use those. That's it. As a group you can roll and place dice on the game board, spend points to bid on who goes first and second to choose a set of dice, and then spend those dice. Let me go into detail. Step 1 is easy. You can have one player roll all the dice and place them, but to save time it's nicer to do this as a group. But then, step 2. Bidding your own points to determine who gets first choice and second choice and so on. During the first half of the game you roll these 2 dice and write down the number on your own player board. In round 4 you'll have written down 4 numbers, count those numbers up, and you get your total number for that. In this part of the game, this is what you have to spend on bidding. Look at this player board, for example. Round 1 was this, round 2 was this. Then I already counted those up and wrote it here, round 3, and added it, and finally round 4. This is my total number. From then on, you subtract. In round 5, I choose to bet 7 points. So I wrote down 7, and then I already subtract 7 points from what I had before and write it down here. This is how much I have left to spend for the next round. You might think it's nice to spend a lot, but at the end of the game, you get points for what you have still left, so keep an eye on that. Also, you are allowed to write down 0 as a number. Anyway, after everyone has written down a number, you one by one start taking a row of dice of your choice. Whoever bet the most goes first, and so on. This is step 3. Depending on which row you choose, you also get a bonus. If you took from row 4, you get to re-roll one of the book dice once. If you took from row 3, you get to travel 1 space. If you took from row 2, you get to turn one of the book dice to a chapel and move up 1 space in the chapel. If you took from row 1, then something happens that I have to explain. Then you take this 1 extra die and roll it. You can use the outcome on these dice on the main game board. These dice that have just been sitting here for the whole game doing nothing. First, what are these dice for? As I've said in the beginning, you score points for each column of books that you have filled in. But you don't get 1 point per space. This is how scoring for that works. First, if you happen to still see a space that shows minus points, you get minus points. That's it. You only lose those points. But if you did fill in that space or even past it, then you look at these dice and your own player board. Under the columns you can see that it says 3, 2, 1.5. This is for scoring at the end of the game. The player with the most books in one column gets 3 times the number of the die in that color. The player with the second most books in that same column gets 2 times the number of the die in that color. And so on. For example, this is the blue column and this is the blue die. It's on number 4. That means that whoever filled in the most spaces in the blue column gets 3 times 4 points. This is how scoring goes at the end of the game for this area. And this is what these 5 dice on the game board are for. And that's also what this one purple die is for. You get that when you choose the first row of dice. You roll it, and based on the outcome you can change the number on these dice. For example, if you roll 2 plus signs, you can turn the green die from a 2 to a 4. And then this has an influence on how many points everyone scores at the end of the game. And with that, I've explained the scoring process at the end of the game into detail as well. So we're there. This is how you play Biblios, Quill and Parchment. I hope you feel like you get it, but you can always check the rulebook for a reminder. And I hope you enjoyed the game. Thank you for watching this tutorial. Feel free to leave a comment and see you for the next one.